Hi, and welcome to the ELL Instructional Aide Training for the beginning of the year. This training has been created from the GISD ELL department. My name is Deanna Pecorino, and I am the ELL Compliance Coordinator in Garland ISD. I, along with Tiffany Gruber, our ELL Compliance Specialist, are excited to welcome you into your new role of an ELL Instructional Aide. We are very excited to work with you this year and look forward in getting to know you and supporting you with your campus needs. Let's get started. This training involves 4 different sections. Section 1, the ELL Aide Role for 2021 school year. Section 2, the Classroom Teacher Support. Section 3, Student Support. And Section 4, ELPAC Support. Let's get started with our ELL Aide Role for 2021. What are my responsibilities and expectations? The ELL role for 2021 is mainly to support students that are participating in the bilingual or ESL program and their families as they participate in the educational process. Our language support entails parent communication, assist with parent communication and new registration. Office support, translating assistance, and daily duties are assigned. Professional development, taking ongoing professional development to meet the needs of our English learners. Section 2, Classroom Teacher Support. How can we support the classroom teachers? The classroom teacher support entails of who? We will be supporting our ESL and bilingual teachers. With what? Intervening with current and potential English learners, otherwise known as ELs. When? Throughout the school year. Where? We can provide a drop-in center to allow ELL students access to additional assistance, similar to a classroom or an office that you have been given for students to come in and ask questions and provide support. During virtual, we can provide a Google Meets where students can come in and we can support them throughout the day, or on campus, an office or a classroom. And how will we support them? Delivery methods include, but not limited to, push-in, pull-out, or co-teaching and coaching with your classroom teachers. The documentation that will be needed is to provide support in documenting students' progress monitoring. You, along with your classroom teachers, will talk about the documentation that each student needs to progress monitor their support that you are giving them throughout the school year. Section 3, Student Support. What students are we supporting and how? GISD students are made up of 30% of English learners. We have 19,128 students that are currently English learners. GISD also serves over 100 languages. Most of our languages or most of our students speak Spanish, Vietnamese, Amharic, Arabic, and Malayalam. The ELL Aide will support ELL students in reading and writing in the content areas of math, science, social studies, and language arts. In language and speaking, as they acquire English to communicate information, ideas, and concepts, we will guide the students and support them in growing in their English language to better communicate their ideas, their academics, and be able to ask further questions to dig deeper into the content. Socially and emotionally, adapting newcomers into their new school environment is very important. As you can imagine, it's hard moving from one country to the other, and especially to acquire a new system of schooling that they are not accustomed to. You are very important and play a very important role in each one of our students' lives. And we are very grateful to have each one of you as our ELL aides supporting our students as they acquire a new language and a new system of education. Section 4, ELPAC Support. How can we support our ELPAC administrators? At the elementary level, all campuses have an ELPAC administrator on campus. Could be your principal or your assistant principal on campus. Your job will be to support them in the documentation process of the ELPAC. Let's talk more about the ELPAC program. The ELPAC committee is made up of an administrator, a campus bilingual or ESL teacher, and a parent. Your support is to help the ELPAC administrator in documenting the needs of the students. We have 4 different types of English learners. 1, an English learner, also known as an EL, who's in the process of acquiring English and has another language as a primary language. This is a very important part of the ELPAC committee in identifying who these students are. Then we move on to reclassification. Once students have met the criteria set forth by the state, showing us that the students no longer need support as an English learner, they may be reclassified. Another important term is an English proficient student, a student who has met reclassification criteria and is no longer identified as an English learner, synonymous with non-EL, non-ELL, or non-LEP student. As you can tell, the terms have been changing throughout the years, so we want to make sure that you are aware and know the different terms to identify our students. Exit, the point at which an English learner has met reclassification criteria and no longer requires bilingual or English as second language program services. Student exits with parental approval. The initial ELPAC versus instructional conversation. When a new student arrives on campus, the students are identified either as new to Texas or not new to Texas. So let's talk a little bit more about the differences between the two. For initial ELPAC, a student enters into our school district as new to Texas, moving from a different country or a different state. Within a 4-week period, the initial ELPAC will take place. First, student services identification testing scores for pre-loss or loss links testing is completed. Then, the ELPAC recommends a program, either bilingual Spanish, bilingual Vietnamese, or English as a second language. And finally, the ELPAC will make that recommendation to parents within the 4-week calendar weeks of the school year. If the student is coming to us from another school district within Texas, then the ELPAC will have an instructional conversation meeting. They will review previous school district in Texas original home language survey, a recommended program by the previous school district, either bilingual Spanish, bilingual Vietnamese, or English as second language, the original student history worksheet, the previous ELPAC recommendations for instructional accommodations and assessment decisions. We will do this within the first 4-week calendar weeks of the student enrollment. The ELPAC administrator and the bilingual or ESL teacher will meet to discuss best placement and supports in GISD to match prior Texas ISD recommendations. Sometimes a different school district has a different language program that the student has been recommended for that GISD does not have. Or we may have other programs that best meet the needs of these students. and that's why it's very important to gather this information from the other school district as quickly as possible. Green folders. We have a green folder, or also a cumulative folder, for all of our English learners as required by TEA. This folder is divided into two different sections, the right section and the left section. Let's explore more about the right side of the green folder. On the right side of the green folder, we will need to place the identification process for that student, their original home language survey, oral language proficiency tests like pre-loss, lost links, IPT, Spanish oral language proficiency tests for those students that have Spanish as their home language, any other testing that has been given for language such as ITBS or ITED coming from another school district, and the ELPAC initial classification form. So that is the ELPAC recommendation for the student program. Then we will add the parent permission form. Either parent approves placement in a language program or a denial form. Then last, we will complete a student history worksheet for this student. We will talk more into depth about what the student history worksheet looks like in just a moment. First, let's look at the documentation we receive from our student services. It's called an Enrollment Center Placement Form. The purpose of this form is to summarize the Enrollment Center student data to recommend placement for a student. It has the student information, Enrollment Center placement in this program. The Services Center recommends based on the student's home language survey and student testing data. Third, testing data that identifies the student as an English learner. And fourth, identifies whether the student is new to Texas for an initial ELPAC or coming to us from another school district in Texas and needs an instructional conversation. If the student is coming to us from another school district in Texas, you will also receive an Enrollment Center intake interview. This form is a conversation between student services and the student's parent to identify what previous school district the student is coming to us from. This is given to the data clerks on every campus to request this information from a previous school district and gather the required documentation for the student to be placed in the appropriate language program in Garland ISD. You will also find in the green folder another form which purpose is to identify or to notify the campus that the student is coming from another district in Texas, and the student does not need an ELPAC. The student needs an instructional conversation. Step 1, the data clerk requests information from a previous school district and collect the information within 10 days of enrollment. And step 2, to collect the original home language survey and latest ELPAC at the very least. This will help the committee or the ELPAC administrator and the ESL or bilingual teacher make the decision and placement for this student to provide them the language support that is needed. The home language survey may look different from one district to the other, but it entails the very basic information that is requested from the state of Texas of what language is spoken in the home and what language does the student mainly speak. Based on this home language is what we will assess the student to identify them as an English language learner, and then student services will ask the parent for a recommendation in a program. The ELPAC is the only committee that can make the final decision of a program placement after they've reviewed the student's data and the programs that the district has in Garland. The next one is a parent denial. Once a parent is given the recommendation of a language program, then the parent has the option to either approve the program placement or deny the services. Testing results. The purpose of this form is for the campus to see students' testing information. This information needs to be filed away in the green folder to document what the students' scores were for their identification of becoming an English learner. The last part of the right side of the green folder entails the Student History Worksheet. The Student History Worksheet purpose is to track a student's LEP status, program participation, and years in U.S. schools as summarized in previous school districts. Okay. The new Student History Worksheet was implemented in the 2019-2020 school year by TEA. You can click here to download the Student History Worksheet, or because this is a presentation, we will provide that for you and also be available throughout the school year. Let's talk about what does a Student History Worksheet look like for a newcomer. For many newcomers, they're coming to us from another state or another country, so the documentation on Student History Worksheet is very simple. You start off with the previous country or state that the student was in, and from what year to what year the student was there. And you mark off all the data pieces because the student has not been in the U.S. or in Texas and been given the assessments such as STAR, TELPAS, and been recommended for a program. Then you move on to the next row and add the 2020-2021 recommendation by the ELPAC, the school that the student is attending in Garland ISD, and which assessment the student took, either for pre-loss or lost links. If they took the English test, you check off English. If they took the Spanish test, you check off Spanish. Then you move on to the ELPAC Recommendation Center area to check off what program the ELPAC has recommended, either bilingual, ESL, or general ed. And then you post the date that the student entered into Garland ISD. For most of our students that are enrolling at the start of the school year, the first day of school will be their entry date. From here, we move on to the left side of the green folder. On the left side of the green folder is where we'll keep student testing and update ELPAC documentation. If student has been in Garland ISD, Elevation will hold this information for the student. Thank you very much for taking this training. We look forward in getting to know you and supporting you throughout this school year. Again, my name is Deanna Pecorino, and you can reach me at dpecorino@garlandisd.net or Tiffany Gruber at tgruber@garlandisd.net. Thank you and have a great day.